How is everybody? Good, good, good. You know, I'm really excited to come here today and talk to you about my 2-week experience in Zambia, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. But first I want to start with who here likes to travel? Yeah, where do you like to travel to?
Florida.
Florida.
Depends on the place.
Okay, what's one favorite place you like?
Favorite place I've been?
Yeah.
Probably Michigan, not so far.
Okay. All right, that's great. What about you?
Tennessee, the Smoky Mountains.
All right, nice. How about you guys? Texas. El Salvador. Wonderful. Orlando, Florida. All right.
Ohio, South Carolina.
Nice, nice.
So, I traveling by, the place I'm about to tell you I traveled to, I only traveled once, so. I traveled to Detroit, but only once.
Okay. Wonderful. That's where I'm from. So, I love Detroit. It's a great city.
Mine was Treasure Island.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. Well, you know, one of my passions is traveling, and you know, this was my trip this year, and I'm excited to share with you all the different things that I got to experience. But first, I want to start. You know, it's winter here, right? Why do you think right now would be a good time to travel to South Africa?
It's warm there.
What's that?
It's cold here.
Yep, it's cold here, which means what?
It's warm there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's summer when it's winter here, and that's because of the axis of the Earth. You know, the northern hemisphere is tilted away from the sun, the southern hemisphere is tilted towards the sun, and you know, when it's summer here, it's winter there, even though it doesn't snow there because it's pretty close to the equator. So first off, we're going to start with a little bit of map. Here's some geography quizzes for you. So starting off in good old Fort Wayne, how long do you think it took me to get to South Africa?
18 hours.
More than 18.
Oh,
More than a day.
21 hours.
More
Oh,
than that.
oh, 2 days. Did it take multiple flights?
What's that?
Was it multiple flights?
Yes.
3 days.
It took 43 hours.
How long? Oh, that's almost long.
43 hours. So I went from Fort Wayne to Philadelphia, and then Philadelphia, it's a 15-hour flight to the United Arab Emirates. Does anyone know what's there? Dubai? Ever hear of Dubai?
Oh, yeah.
That's where that is. And then from there to South Africa is another 8-hour flight. So with the layovers and everything, it took 43 hours to get there. But I'll tell you, it was worth it. The first stop in the trip was going to Zambia. And this is an aerial view of Victoria Falls. Have you guys read about that?
And the dog was cool.
Well, I didn't take this photo, I'll admit. This is not one of mine. This is actually at the airport. But the Victoria Falls separates the two countries of Zambia and Zimbabwe. But it's a beautiful park to go witness. So here's the park from the Zambia side of the country. And the Victoria Falls is not only the longest waterfall, it's over a mile long, but it's also the tallest. So being in the park here, the water is coming down at such a force that it actually feels like it's raining as you're walking the path because there's so much water coming back up from splashing down on the bottom. So it's a really neat experience. This is the bridge to cross to go from Zambia to Zimbabwe, and I'll talk a little bit about crossing borders and the experience with that. But one of the things is, anybody here ever want to bungee jump in their life? You can bungee jump off that bridge. Would you do it?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah.
What if I told you the rope broke about 8 months ago?
Yes.
What?
Nope, I'm good.
The rope broke about 8 months ago. Well, it made me not want to trust it that much, so, but it is something you can do on your trip. So this is on the, this is the the Zambezi River, and the river flows over the waterfalls. Now, that's the edge of the waterfall from the top. And this is an area called the Devil's Pool. So the Devil's Pool was created through the erosion of the power of the water, just keeps on wiping away the rock over decades. That's me right there hanging over the side. But this is one of those social media tricks, because guess what? There's two guys holding my feet out of the side of that picture. So that was the safety that we had. Yeah,
I have a question.
yeah.
One, congratulations on getting to go to Africa.
What was it?
He was congratulating you on getting to go.
Thank you.
That's number one.
Thank you.
Two, did you even take any of the pictures I'm gonna be showing you?
Oh yeah, all these pictures that I took, or somebody took that was with me. Yep.
That's him in it. But
Yeah,
He gave someone else the camera.
Yeah,
so
somebody
he
took
could-
this picture of me,
That
right?
way he could hold on for dear life.
Yes.
Is that the closest you got?
That is the closest. Now, that is a drop right there to certain death. So, so you don't want to get any closer than that. Here's another picture, you know, and again, the safety standards are a little bit different than they are here in the U.S. So at the Devil's Pool, all there really was that one little rope that went across the water, and that was kind of your last resort to grab onto in the event that you started to go over the edge. The good news is nobody has gone over the edge in this area. So the water level can change throughout the year, and this was a perfect time to go where the water was just low enough so that you could go into this eroded hole, which they call the Devil's Pool, and it created a safety ledge for you, so you didn't necessarily fall over the side. Here is just a picture of me and my buddies in the pool, and there's the edge of the waterfall. So it was a really neat experience. Definitely get your heart pounding, knowing that, you know, that's the edge and there's nothing there to protect you if anything happens. Here is part of the park around Victoria Falls. So the baboons, they are not afraid of people, and because they've been around people for so long that they know where the food is. At the hotel that we stayed at real near here, you had to keep your doors locked because the baboons and the monkeys know where the sugar is and they know where the fruit is in the rooms. So if you didn't lock your doors, they will go into your hotel room and take stuff. And so they don't like that to happen, so they warned us multiple times to make sure that we were keeping our door walls closed and our rooms locked. Here's just another picture. You know, the baboons, like I said, they're not afraid of people, so they're just laying on the sidewalk and just relaxing in the sun. This is on the grounds of the hotel. So the giraffes here, they're very accustomed to having people around, so they just walk around. You can feed them if you want, but I don't know if you've ever seen, a giraffe's mouth is rather large, and it's not something I would put my hand near. So,
Their tongues are like,
yes,
and at
they are.
the zoo, they train them to eat.
They absolutely are. So, and then there was also wild zebras that ran around, and these are not caged animals. They graze the land. There's some little cafes and whatnot outside, and they'll walk right up to the tables. They don't want you to feed because they don't want the animals to get very acclimated to getting human food and whatnot. So, so they kind of kept you away. And one of the funny things was one of the employees at this resort, he carried around a slingshot. Why do you think he carried around a slingshot?
Did any of them like octopus or other animals?
Yes, yep. So if the monkeys got too aggressive or, they needed to, they didn't want to hurt them, but they wanted to get them to move on. And, another story that I shared with one of the other groups was, I thought I was playing with a monkey and just kind of, but then somebody came over to me and said, that one's going to get aggressive and it's going to attack you. So I walked away from the monkey. They're not so playful. Yeah.
What was the slingshot for?
It was to scare away animals if they got too close to humans and the food that was out.
You're aggressive.
They're not aggressive per se, that they're not mean in a way, but they're very insistent on getting food, so it's a lot easier for them. They really like sugar, so if they see something or they know of something that is very sweet or sugary, they'll be pretty aggressive to get it. They won't hurt you, but they'll stick their hands in your pockets and If you're not well protected around it, they will get it. So this is the bridge where I showed you with the bungee jumping, and this is to get from Zambia to Zimbabwe. Now, because of COVID, citizens of Zambia can go to Zimbabwe, but if you're a citizen of Zimbabwe, you cannot go to Zambia. So it's just one of the rules that they have with COVID. And on each side, so no cars are allowed to go across the border, so you have to walk with your luggage and everything. And you have to get kind of like a health contract. So I had to carry around these papers, and anytime I crossed the border, I had to have my newest test, and I had to get a health stamp. And if at any time somebody had tested positive, you would be stuck wherever you were at for at least 10 days. So it was a little bit of a risk to go during, the pandemic right now. But the good thing is that it's very under control in South Africa. They've taken a lot of precautions. They've been very, very protective of sanitizing and temperature checks, and the vaccination rate's very high. So, the Omicron variant hit South Africa very hard, and then they cracked down, and now things are doing a lot better there. So it's good to see. There was 11 people that traveled in my group, and nobody ever got COVID, which was really nice, especially being in so many different countries. So we walked across the border, and we went into Zimbabwe, and this is the border that you have to cross. And like I said, cars cannot go across, so you have to carry your stuff across the border. You go into kind of this garage barn where they look through your luggage to make sure you're not smuggling anything, and it's like being in the country in the middle of nowhere. There's
If there are supposed to be any cars going through, why is there a stop sign?
So the stop sign there is actually a gate there for people to walk through, but they want you have to go through that through the barn or garage right there. So they don't want, you could sneak through, but we never tried. It wasn't worth the risk, right? But the border used to be open for cars, and there actually is a train that used to go through, but the train, because of COVID, they shut that down as of now as well. So once we got through the border, on the streets of Zimbabwe, animals just roam freely. And so here's just a good example of, on a paved road, you have goats and donkeys and bulls just kind of grazing the land, which was something you just don't see here in the U.S. So then we went to Johannesburg. So what do you guys know about Johannesburg? So it's the biggest city in South Africa, and it played a really big part in apartheid. So have you guys read about that at all recently? Or yeah? Okay. So this is one of the towns when we were in Johannesburg. This is what's called Soweto, which is Southwest Township. And this area really started to spring up when in the 40s, the bubonic plague was hitting major cities, and Johannesburg was a very dense city, and so populations started moving outside of the crowded towns to get more space to slow the spread. Well, the neighborhoods started to get segregated by ethnicities and whatnot, and so this area was settled by a lot of Africans that worked in the gold mines. So, have you heard of the California Gold Rush? Well, the South African gold rush was even bigger than the California gold rush. So has anyone ever heard of the company De Beers? The commercials on TV, what are they known for? Diamonds.
I just heard.
So diamonds and gold there was a big industry, and there still is, for diamonds and gold. So needless to say, this was an area where it was settled by Africans that worked in the mines. And then during the 40s, when apartheid really started to take hold, you had 8% of the population that was British or Dutch, and 92% that was African, and the 8% controlled the country. And so that's when a lot of the segregated laws came into a place. about where you can live, where you can't live, curfews being put into place, which started a lot of the rules and whatnot that led to apartheid going on for as long as it did. So this is just one of the neighborhoods, and you can see, the houses sprung up very close together. I got some pictures here. This is what a typical lower income house looks like in the Soweto neighborhood. It's typically a 1 or 2 room building, and you have a whole family that lives there. And not all of these houses have plumbing, so if you don't have plumbing, you share the community bathroom. It's illegal to have a wild animal as a pet down there. So, but anyways, here's another shot of Cape Town and Table Mountain. And we hiked up to the top of that mountain. And for somebody who's in really good shape, it's supposed to take about 3 hours. It's a pretty hefty climb. For me and my group, it took us 5.5 hours. But once you start climbing the mountain, you can't go back down. And it starts off that there's a lot of nice paths to walk, and it seems like it's going to be easy. But then you start to hit areas where it's a sheer cliff like that. So how do you think you climb a mountain that looks like that?
Like one of those things, a rope thingy.
They do have those.
Not a rope, but I don't know what it's called. A harness thing.
Yeah. Well, they don't have harnesses there. Well, for the people rappelling they do, but we had to climb. So this is just a wider shot of we're down here and we want to get up here because that's where the people that ride the cable car go, and so we need to get up there. And what you'll see is there's like staples, they're almost like a ladder that you're climbing up the side, and there's nothing holding us in. So we're not using carabiners to clip onto anything. There's a lot less safety precautions that they take in South Africa. And then you'll see there's spots even where you just had to stick your hands in some of the cracks of the rocks to pull yourself up. And the other thing was we started at 6 in the morning on this climb because as soon as that sun comes up, you just melt because you're so high up. And so we started early. We were supposed to be done before the sun fully got up, but because we took a lot longer, the sun was fully up by the time we got to the top. And then in this picture, if you can see, you see this little dot right there?
Yeah.
That's a person rappelling down. So that just kind of shows you the sheer size of what this mountain looked like as we were climbing it. And then when you get to the top, that's what the city below looks like. So it really doesn't look like much, does it? But those are houses and highways and cars and soccer fields. It was a really neat thing to see. So then going on to the safari, and just let me know what time.
Okay.
We're good?
Yeah, we've got about 5, 10, 15, almost 20 minutes.
Okay, great. So then the next part of the journey from Cape Town was to go on a safari. And you got to ride in one of these little planes because they land on just a small little airfield in the middle of nowhere. There's no airport, there's no TSA, you just get on this little 4-person plane and you fly out to the middle of nowhere. And we did a total of 8 safaris on this trip, and this is what a vehicle looks like that we rode in. So you could have 6 people in the back. We had our tour guide driving, and then there was a guy that sat up front. So what do you think the guy in the front was doing?
Driving.
He was probably like looking around and probably had a weapon of some sort.
Yeah.
So he needed it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sorry? Yeah.
Like the guy and showing you like this up?
Yeah. So his title is a tracker. And what a tracker does is not only has he been really trained to spot animals, but he also carries the machete and the gun in the event that something happens to protect people.
Does he have like binoculars?
Nope. He's just this is something that he's done all of his life, and he can look at footprints in the dirt and know how fresh they were. And it's very interesting because they know all the little nuances about the way where the animals move to, where they like to hang out. And so it was really good to have somebody, he grew up actually in the park, and so this is just normal to him and very natural. So as we go on, the first group of animals we saw, so here's a male lion with his cubs. You know, lions are the king of the beasts, or you might have heard them called the king of the jungle. Any idea why you think they have that name?
Because they kill a lot of animals.
Well, they do that, absolutely.
That are
Yeah.
unstoppable.
Is it the biggest animal?
There's bigger animals.
Because they overruled the, prey power, whatever.
Yeah. They have no natural enemies. So the only enemies that the lions have are humans. You know, so lions, how they hunt, this is very interesting, is the female lioness is typically a lot faster, and she's the one that usually goes and gets the kill. So it's usually an antelope or a kudu. She brings it back to the den. The male lion gets to eat first because he's got to be strong enough to protect the den. The female lion gets to eat next, and that's to keep her strong so that she can continue hunting. And then the cubs get to eat, and the cubs only get whatever's left over. And what's interesting about it is this is how they control the population of what size den that they can control, is if they don't have enough food, the weakest cub is probably going to die. Now, when they have big kills, which antelopes, or rarely do they eat elephants, but a lot of the smaller animals, they can typically keep about 4 or 5 cubs. Now as they get older, the male lions then go off and then start their own den, basically. So it was really interesting. He got to eat first. You can see the little cubs waiting for their little piece of the meat. And anybody here have a cat? And cats, they like to be all up in your business, right? So same with these cats. These cats would creep up right next to him, and they'd try and grab a piece, and he would growl at them. At one point he got up, took his meat, and he walked away because he was just getting sick of his kids. And then we saw giraffes. So the giraffes, you know, they eat all day long, leaves, grass. The one really good thing about having a long neck is you can see what's going on around the trees. And there was a spot that we ran into a giraffe that was actually watching that den of lions. And its sole focus was to watch where they moved, so that way it could stay safe. So it was a pretty interesting thing to see. Then we have, anybody know what that is?
A leopard.
It's a leopard, yeah. And any idea what leopards eat?
Lion.
They eat meat, yep. So leopards, when they kill an antelope or a small animal, they climb into a tree and eat it. Any idea why they would eat it in a tree?
So you don't get bothered or attacked from the back?
What's that?
So you don't get attacked from the back?
Well, it's to keep the hyenas away from stealing their food. So the hyenas can't climb trees, but hyenas are kind of the scavengers of the wild. So any chance they get, they'll take somebody else's food. And then, anybody know what that is?
Bison. Buffalo.
It's a wildebeest. Wildebeest. So wildebeest, this was, he was getting a little anxious that we were getting a little too close for him, so we didn't stay long, but we got the wildebeest, we got elephants and the little baby elephant. You'll see, you know, elephants used to be endangered because of their ivory tusks, and now that the ivory trade is illegal, they've rebounded very well. People don't hunt them anymore because they can't get the ivory across the borders. But this is what a kudu is. So a kudu is basically the best meal for a lot of the cats. And so what I brought you was, this is the only way a kudu can defend itself, is its horn, okay? Now this is clean, it's sterilized, there's no germs or anything on it, but if you guys you wanna touch it, you wanna pass it around? Got it? That's a real one, yeah. Yep. So that's the only thing it has to defend itself from lions and cheetahs and leopards. So imagine having that on your head and just having to ram things to try and protect yourself. It's clean, I promise you. There's no skin, there's no...
Do you know if it's made of like keratin, like our nails and hair are, or I'm not sure.
You know, I don't know.
I will have to Google.
I would think so. Yeah, I would think so. So then here is a water buffalo, and water buffaloes are not very friendly either. They travel in large herds, and as you can see, all of this is bone. So again, this is how it defends itself, and it usually uses this part of its head to ram things before it pokes them or stabs them with the horns. And then here's a rhino. Now rhinos are very endangered at this point, and one of the only rules we had on the safari was that we couldn't post any pictures online of rhinos because they don't want the poachers to know on how well the population of rhinos is doing in the park. A lot of poachers want the horn off the front of rhinos. So they will come into the park, they'll kill them, and they'll cut the horn off. And in some countries, there's people that think that it cures cancer or that it has some type of medicinal purpose. It's all been scientifically unproven that none of that's true. But a poacher can take this animal down and cut off its horn in less than 10 minutes. So there's a lot of protection for them. There's army members walking around the park to make sure that there's no poachers out there. Now, had we as tourists encountered any of them, we would have just drove away. You know, they don't want you engaging the poachers. So here's another shot of the lion after he's full, and now he gets to take his break. So let's see here. Oh, the other thing is, so those were all the big animals, and now I'm going to show you some of the small animals that are in South Africa. So anybody know what that is?
Chameleon.
Yeah. Anybody have one as a pet? No? Yeah? You know people that have one? So this guy, how big do you think he is? No, he was pretty big. And this was on one of our night safaris. He's just hanging out on the tree. Here's the dung beetle. Yep, dung beetle. They fly around in the air, and you just want to stay away from them. That wasn't me that touched it. Okay. That was so our safari guide. He ate a termite while we were there. He pulled that out. Yeah. He didn't eat that. How about that? Scorpion. So this is one of the most dangerous scorpions in South Africa that if you get stung by it, that you need to get antivenom in usually about a 2-hour window, otherwise it could potentially kill you. It can paralyze you. It's very, very dangerous. And then this, I thought it was a lizard, but somebody corrected me in one of the last lessons. But this guy hung out outside my door every day, and you know, he looks so prehistoric and scary, but he actually was more afraid of me than I was of him.
Is that a Komodo dragon?
No, it wasn't a Komodo dragon. I can't remember what the name of it was.
Mosquito.
Here's a spider. We held a piece of paper to the back of it just so you can kind of see. You know, that's an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and that spider was in his web, just waiting for some food. The other thing I want to mention that I don't have a picture of is one of the other interesting things about the safari is, you know, we stayed in the vehicle for most of the time, but there's a lot of tall grasses, and ticks hang out on the very edge of the grass for something to pass by for it to get to attach to. So whether that's an animal or a person, and a tick can sit on the edge of a blade of grass for 2 to 3 years without eating any food, just sitting there waiting for something to attach to. And our guide actually did pull a tick off of a piece of grass to show us, and it's just very, very small. One of the other cool things that they showed us was there's a lot of medicinal plants in the wild in South Africa that have been turned into medicines that we use every day. So there's a flower that you can squeeze that has the ingredients in it that we use in eye drops. They actually, with the ticks, if you were out in the wild and you needed stitches, there is a process that you can rip the head off the tick to have it staple your skin. They've learned a lot of different things to be self-sufficient out in the wild. So the last thing I'll share with you before we open it up for questions is I want to talk about the money of the country. So we have South African rands here, okay? So what do you think a 20 South African rand is worth?
$1.
Pretty close. Yeah. No, it's about $1.25, $1.50. The exchange rate right now is 15 rand equals $1. So a $200 rand is about, what, $10, $11, $12, somewhere in that range. So, you know, I'll pass these around so you can take a look at them. So those are the small bills. But also in Zimbabwe, here's $5 billion. Yeah. What do you think a $5 billion bill's worth?
75 cents. $15. 1 cent.
Nothing. They don't use these anymore. In Zimbabwe, they had hyperinflation, which the government printed too much money. It went way too far into debt. They had very bad economic policies for the country, and so the money became worthless. And so as the money became worthless, they had to print bigger and bigger and bigger bills until the point where they said, you know what? There were bills that they used to print that were in the trillions of dollars. And now they don't use Zimbabwe dollars at all. They use US dollars. How much was that worth? Well, it could have ranged anywhere from $1 to probably $10, $20 at some point. But I believe it was 2019 they decided that they weren't going to use that currency at all anymore, and so they switched to the US dollar. So with that, I'll open it up. What questions do you have? So, did you guys put, yeah?
So like, where did you stay at?
Where did I stay at?
Like, yeah, what type of hotels and stuff did you stay at? Like, Marriott type hotels?
Yeah, so in Cape Town, which was the bigger city, we stayed at a kind of like a Holiday Inn Marriott kind of place. When we actually went on the safari, we stayed at a lodge that only had room for, I think there were 10 rooms, and it was very rustic. You know, it's out in the middle of nowhere, and you know, kind of like a camp. I'll go to her and I'll come back to you. Yeah.
What kind of food did you eat?
What kind of food did I eat? You know, I am not an adventurous food person, but one of the local delicacies is ostriches. Has anyone ever eaten ostrich? Have you?
Yes.
Oh, it's something I couldn't do. Let me grab her and then I'll come back.
What was your favorite country? Favorite landmark?
My favorite country was South Africa, by far. There were so many different things to see.
What was your favorite?
The safari, the wild animals. Yeah. I did not eat goat, and in fact, I never saw goat brains on the menu. Yeah. My favorite animal was probably the cheetah, because we only saw him one time, and he was sitting on top of a termite hill overlooking all the fields. And it was about when the sun had gone down, so it was a pretty cool thing to see. Yeah.
What was your favorite thing to do?
Favorite thing to do? It probably was climbing the mountain. And I picked that one because I really had to challenge myself to finish it. I wanted to quit so many times, but once you get started, you know, you just one foot in front of the next and eventually you get there. So, yeah. Cash back? In what way?
Like $5 million, so if something like $20, and they give them $5 billion because do they get cash back?
No, they don't use that money anymore, so they wouldn't even take it if we went to spend it. Yeah.
You want to hear a joke?
Okay.
Why aren't there any tests at zoos?
Any cats?
No, why aren't there any tests at zoos? Tests.
Test?
Tests at zoos.
What is that?
Because there's always cheetahs.
Good one.
I haven't heard that.
Yeah, what's your question?
Buy the $5 million and they just give it to you.
Yeah, it was a souvenir. You know, there's one of the things going into Zimbabwe is, you know, people that have all this old money that's worthless, they sell it to the tourists. So that's where I picked it up at.
One of the questions online submitted was, what inspired you to go to South Africa?
Wow. Well, I love to travel the world, and last year I went to Egypt in the northern part of Africa, and I've never been on the southern part, so I wanted to do a safari, and it's just one of those places on my bucket list that I finally have to check off. Yeah.
Could you please go to Dubai and come back and tell me how it went?
Sure.
Just add it to your list, your travel list.
Yeah, you need a lot of money to go to Dubai, because everything is very expensive there. So,
Ladies and gents, what do you say?
nice to meet you guys, have a great day.
I need the money, guys.
Oh my god, I hate. This was loosened. Okay.
And then there was Bill.